Welcome in. Happy Monday. This is the PHNX D-backs podcast. My name is Derek Montilla, known as your mayor of PHNX. This man next to me, Mr. Electric himself, Shawn.
Yo.
And of course, it's my vice mayor and your thunderstick, the one and only Jesse Friedman.
Let's mosh, baby.
Guys, big weekend for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Unexpected results here against a very hot Chicago Cubs team. They go in there in a 4-game series, and they managed to take 3 out of 4. I think we would have been happy with 2 out of 4 in this scenario, but considering how much the Diamondbacks need each and every win that they in these series remaining, this was a great series for them. Obviously, they dropped the finale 5-2. But you know what? You still gotta appreciate and be very happy that they take 3 of 4.
Yeah, it was a huge series for the Diamondbacks, no doubt. I mean, there's a really big difference between being 4 games behind the Cubs and being 2 games behind the Cubs. Obviously, if they'd won yesterday, they would be tied with the Cubs entering this week, which, I mean, that would be a whole other situation.
Sure.
But yeah, they are very much within striking distance of the Chicago Cubs with, 3 more games against them coming this weekend. And still, 17, 18 games to go in the season at this point. So, every game is a playoff game at this point. At least that's sort of what it feels like. And,
Yes.
The Diamondbacks took care of business and then some this weekend in Chicago.
Taking a step backwards to, I believe, Thursday's show, we said that 3 out of 7 would still feel like a win considering the way this Cubs team is playing. So at least the Diamondbacks have already established those 3 out of the 7, right? But the other thing that really impressed me with this was the way the Diamondbacks made a hot Chicago Cubs team like cool off offensively. Like the Diamondbacks pitching staff really did an excellent job against a team who, might not be the best offense in baseball, but they were definitely playing like it over the last 2 weeks coming into this series.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone reasonably, or if they were being honest with themselves, could have reasonably expected the Diamondbacks to look the way they did all 4 of these games, or I guess the first 3. But even the 4th game, I mean, a lot of that I think was fought just not being great. But
it was a weird start, that last game for sure.
But like I don't think anybody reasonably could have expected them to perform the way they did. And even if they were going to win those games, I don't think anyone could have expected them to look the way they did, right?
Yeah.
Winning a 1-0 pitcher's duel against the Cubs would, I think, caught everybody a little bit surprised. I mean, the idea that Zach Gallen could throw a complete game shot piece, I don't think catches anybody by surprise. But obviously, it all happening like that.
We haven't seen it before, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, what a time for his first one to occur.
Talking Jake was talking about it, John Boy, earlier today, and he was just like, it was a complete game shutout in a 1-0 game against a team immediately in front of you in the standings on the road. Like that was a playoff. It was a playoff game.
It was beautiful.
And the Diamondbacks showed out, and they did that through this entire series. Again, I don't think you reasonably could have expected it, so it was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah,
I will say, getting back to them winning like the 3 of 7 and already having that accomplished, like if you lose 4 straight against the Cubs, that doesn't mean anything to me anymore.
Yeah,
like it's a lot. It's more fair. Like winning 3 of 7 overall. But if you win the first 3,
in this one, and maybe one,
if you go get swept at home by the Cubs, then who cares about what you did last weekend?
Yeah.
The expectations as far as D-backs versus Cubs, I think, has definitely changed at this point.
Torrey opted to use an opener, Jesse, in that final game, which was surprising. We had Brandon Pfaadt obviously in there, and Brandon Pfaadt did pitch. But, I mean, overall, going with Joe Mantiply there early didn't really didn't accomplish much. Mantiply gave up a run in the first inning, and then they still went to Brandon Pfaadt, who didn't have a great outing, regardless of the fact that he didn't come in to start the game.
Yeah, it was a really interesting decision by Torey Lovullo. Brandon Pfaadt was listed as the probable starter pretty close before, pretty soon before game time. This decision was made to switch to Joe Mantiply. So, yeah, the way that Torey Lovullo has described the decision is he basically wanted to force David Ross, the manager of the Cubs, to either change his lineup and adjust, which is what the Cubs ultimately did wind up doing. They changed their lineup around to make it so they had some right-handed hitters stacked at the top to face Joe Mantiply. Or, of course, what could have also happened is they didn't adjust, in which case, you could have Joe Mantiply come in and get some good matchups and then bring in Brandon Pfaadt after that. But yeah, as I said, the Cubs did adjust their lineup, which it's a little hard for me to see where the D-backs had the advantage here because Joe Mantiply just had some pretty bad matchups in that first inning. Is
Yeah.
like you're using an opener against a bunch of right-handed hitters at the top.
Yeah.
So I thought it was probably a smart counterpunch by David Ross. And the other factor here is, you don't know how this affected Brandon Pfaadt. Did this mess with his rhythm? Did this mess?
Yeah.
Obviously, it messed with his routine. To what degree, did that play into him coming into this game and really struggling? And he didn't have a terrible outing overall, but he gave up solo homers to 3 of the first 5 batters he faced, right? He just came in the game.
It definitely was a bad start.
It was a pretty bad start. And you have to wonder how much of that is because he didn't start this game and the D-backs, kind of switched things up last minute. So, do they win this game if they just start Brandon Pfaadt? Who's to say? I mean, it's hard to win when you only score 2 runs at the end of the day. So it probably didn't make a difference, but an interesting decision that I honestly didn't fully understand.
Baseball players are a creature of habit. It's the reason why Zach Gallen mostly wanted to start the All-Star game. It wasn't the fact that he was going to pitch anymore.
Routine, right?
It was just routine, right? Just being able to start the game like you always do. So I don't really know how much that did impact it, but obviously that entire situation didn't go their way. It was a critical game for the Cubs, though. They just lost 3 in a row to the Diamondbacks, and they're a team that in their own mind, they're not. The wild card is definitely, important to them, obviously, but they're focused on their division. And right when they were really getting close to making up some ground, they ran into the Diamondbacks, who somehow figured out a way to take those first 3 games. So
it's nice to be on this side of that, as opposed to
of not being the desperation one.
Like or having your momentum just complete. Like you're good. You go into a series against, like, I don't know, the skidding Mets, for example,
and then
everyone's like, oh, we're rolling, and then the skidding Mets all of a sudden kick your ass, and you're like, what are we? And you have to start asking all these questions. It's much nicer to be the ones that are causing a fan base to ask questions as opposed to being the fan base that is having to ask all these questions.
Yeah, they all took the Cubs left on their road trip dressed like characters from Super Mario Brothers. And I saw a lot of comments about how they needed to save the city of Chicago and things like that. Shout out to Slickzilla for the super chat. Thank you so much. Slickzilla says, hey guys, been watching for a couple of months. Keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate that so much. Connor Mormon, I know we probably threw this up earlier, but he said, not in my wildest dreams did I think we would go into Wrigley against the Cubs offense and completely shut them down in 3 or 4 games. I was prepared for a disastrous weekend. Same. Connor, you and I were in the same boat as far as that goes. That's why it makes it hard to not, like, on Sunday, I hate to admit this, especially in front of Jesse, because this is going to make Jesse very upset. But it was easy to kind of check out on baseball because football was going on and the Diamondbacks had won 3 out of 4.
That's shameful, Derek.
So it was easy when things didn't look like they were going good for the Diamondbacks very early on. It was very easy to just watch the things go bad for the Cardinals on another channel. So, but a thing that didn't go too well was Jordan Lawlar's debut. He didn't play on Sunday, and this series was a little rough for him offensively. He really didn't get more than that first hit in his first game. He went 1 for 11 with that single. He stole a base, struck out 6 times. But I think right now, that's is expected a bit. Like, I don't think the Diamondbacks were expecting Jordan Lawlar to come in here and hit 386 like he was in AAA. But what are your thoughts on that, and just kind of how long it kind of can take for a young player like this to catch up to major league pitching?
Yeah. I think the biggest question it seemed coming into Jordan Lawlar's time in the majors is just how is he going to handle breaking pitches, especially from right-handed pitchers.
Right.
I think his whiff rate on breaking pitches in AAA was something like 40%, and I don't think that was just righties. I think that was righties and lefties. That's a pretty high whiff rate. He does there is some swing and miss there against breaking pitches, and obviously there's a difference between the breakers you're seeing in AAA and like Justin Steele's slider, even though he's a lefty, right? So I think it's probably going to take him some time to adjust. The at-bats didn't look great. I think if we're being honest, the contact was not particularly hard. There was a lot of ground balls on the infield with, exit velos in the 70s and low 80s. But yeah, I mean, it's 11 at-bats, so you're not rushing to judgment or anything at this point. But it does look like there might be a bit of an adjustment period here for him.
And while a few looked as foolish as me and this guy over here when it came to this whole situation, right? Nick Ahmed, you can't say like, oh, hey, his production wasn't, wasn't like more than this, right? So it's like Jordan Lawlar
That's
isn't
fair.
the
Yeah,
he's not the end all be all to the situation. He did have some really great defensive moments, so that was very encouraging. And you don't know there about who, if Perdomo or Ahmed would have made those plays, but he's also had some bad defensive moments.
There was a pop up the other day
pop-up
that he probably should have taken charge on and didn't. I know the wind was maybe a factor there, and it was maybe a little bit closer to Cattell than it was to him, but the shortstop is supposed to take charge in those situations. So, yeah.
Right. But again, it doesn't really matter because for the most part, Jordan Lawlar is still an incredible baseball player. We've seen him do some incredible things already. And I think the idea here is to hopefully give him enough time that his production is a factor here before the end of the season. And more importantly, his offensive production is a factor going into the postseason should the Diamondbacks make it there.
Yeah. It's really easy to think of guys in AAA with big numbers and big prospect status as like the saviors of the season, right?
Yeah.
And because they have a blank slate and you don't know what they're going to be until you know what they're going to be, right?
And I mean, we talked a lot, or at least I talked a lot about in the lead up, like, you see this all the time. Kids show up and they just they take the world by storm for a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
And I think there was, at least for me, and I think a lot of fans, kind of an underlying hope that was what was going to happen with him.
We want
but
that.
It's not
We'd
a
rather that
guarantee,
fast
right?
start and then he slows back down, goes back down to earth rather than the slow start, right? But the slow start is more common, more realistic. And I think, honestly, there's no better example of it than Kyle Lewis, who just continues to mash the ball in AAA.
Mashing in AAA, unfortunately, does not always translate to mashing.
And like every time he comes up, I get excited again, And to be fair, they don't really give him a very long leash when he is up here. You don't see Kyle Lewis get very extended time. He usually gets sent back down fairly quickly, especially considering his lack of production. But the Diamondbacks definitely didn't need a lot of production from their offense in this series because the pitching took care of business. Let's take a look at the numbers of this 4-game series against the Chicago Cubs. We have here 12 whole runs against 9 runs in 4 games, you guys.
That's crazy.
That's just
exactly what everyone expected from the Cubs offense.
Right.
If I had told you guys that the D-backs were going to score 12 runs in the series before it started, you probably would have thought the D-backs were going to get swept, right?
If you told me the Cubs scored 9 runs a game, I would have expected the 9 runs to have been in one game against the Diamondbacks and not spread across 4 games.
I think this is impressive if it's a 3-game series.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard to factor in that last game considering Mantiply is the starting pitcher there, but a 1.25 starting pitching ERA. The starting pitching saved the Diamondbacks in this series. They single-handedly won it for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I feel like the Diamondbacks won this series on Saturday. That was the game that it was like, I don't know if you're supposed to win this game, but somehow they did. Right, a 10-inning affair. Lourdes Gurriel made not 1 but 2 game-saving defensive plays.
Incredible catch.
Everyone's favorite defensive specialist, Lourdes Gurriel.
There you go. There was an assist to second base, right? I'm not remembering who the Cubs hitter was, but there was a double against Kevin Ginkel in the 8th inning that was erased. It should have been a double, but it wasn't because Lourdes Gurriel got the man at second base. And I think like the next hitter doubled as well. And if that had happened, the game would have been over. The Diamondbacks would not have been able to come out of that with a win. And then it happened again in extra innings when Lourdes made a really nice running catch when Paul Sewald was on the mound. So it was a game of inches. I mean, the Cubs, they had some defensive flaws at the same time. I think there was a pass ball and a wild pitch in the 10th inning. D-backs only had 1 hit in the 10th, but managed to score 2 runs. I think there was also a hit by pitch in there, which helped. The D-backs just did a lot more of the little things in that Saturday game. And that was the difference between a win and a loss in that one, and the difference between a series split and taking 3 out of 4, which is obviously enormous in a series like this.
It's huge because I think all 3 of us would have been satisfied with a series split, even happy about that, right? But to win the series, to take 3 out of 4, most importantly, just to hold the Cubs to 9 runs when the Cubs have really, I mean, it felt just like yesterday, like when we were at our takeover and we were kind of scoreboard watching, and it's like every time we looked up, the Cubs had scored another run in the game that they were playing, and it was like, my God, we have to play this team next. That's when I started getting very fearful of this series, and things aren't great ahead, because when you look at the upcoming 3-game series the Diamondbacks have against the Cubs when they come to Chase Field, there will be no Zach Gallen. There will be no Merrill Kelly.
It lines up for, I know we'll talk about this again when we get to that series, but it lines up for Steele Fott on Friday, Hendricks Davies on Saturday, Wicks Nelson on Sunday. Oof. Don't really see a clear advantage D-backs in any of those games.
That's gonna go
well.
I'm gonna stop pretending like I ever know what this team is gonna do.
Exactly,
because every time you think you know, they do something different. Which means
the minute you think
Davies is gonna throw a no-hitter, they're gonna score 83 runs,
and they're gonna sweep the Cubs.
And they're gonna lose the series somehow.
Oh yeah, that's probably also what will happen. But let's take a look at the wild card standings, because this was. It was a good weekend, but man, some of those other teams, just like when the Diamondbacks were losing, they were losing. The Diamondbacks are winning. These teams are winning. They're keeping things interesting.
We're coming for the Phillies.
Those Marlins, man, what is going on with the Marlins? Like, they are 5 games over 500 now. How?
I don't know.
Again, I mean, I feel like I said this last week. Like, I feel like every team that's in this wild card race is having the exact same conversations, where you look at the other teams and you're like, how are they still doing this?
They're
like,
in it.
I mean, the Diamondbacks were the worst team in baseball for a month and a half. If I'm the Marlins, the Giants, or the Reds, I'm sick to my stomach that the D-backs are still in a wild card spot ahead of us.
That's true.
I mean,
I'm with you on that.
Like, it's insane. And I mean, like, look, I was joking about this with Jesse before the show, and I by no means think that the Phillies are an actual, like, that's an achievable spot. But I mean, they're about to lose to the Braves. They got to play the Braves again later today.
Yeah.
Like,
their pitching is kind of a mess.
Realistically, like this whole thing, the Diamondbacks could end up with the first wild card spot, and they could end up 3 spots outside of the playoffs.
That is
none
very
of it.
true.
None of it would be surprising.
That's true for all the 5 other teams that are in the wild card or below right now.
That's what makes.
And I mean, even for the Brewers,
that's what makes this so much fun.
The Brewers can miss the playoffs, and they've been winning the Central all year.
The White Sox inexplicably traded Jake Berger to the Miami Marlins at the trade deadline, and that's a pretty big part of what we've seen. Jake Berger has an 849 OPS since that trade happened. And he's been a big contributor. I mean, the Marlins offense kind of shut down a little bit there in the middle months of the season. But I mean, their pitching is good and their schedule is incredibly difficult, and yet they just keep running over like really good teams. They beat the Dodgers 2 out of 3, I think. I think they took a series from the Mariners. They just, I believe, took a series against the Phillies. They just don't stop winning right now.
I hope people are saying that about Tommy Pham. I hope when other teams are frustrated about the Diamondbacks, they're like, man, look at what Tommy Pham's been doing since he went over for them. Like, who would have thought, right?
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people in Toronto that are sick to their stomach over
that's
Gabby.
That's for sure.
Which, by the way, Gabby, have a kid.
Papa Gabby.
Everyone,
congratulations.
23-year-old dad Gabby, which makes me very unsettled.
Let's go. Well, I mean, we all do things at our own time. It's okay. You're fine. But
congratulations. At least a decade out from having a child.
I was really disappointed.
I'm trying to start a family now.
He went to Nashville to start a family, and he didn't have it. I'm still frustrated that didn't happen. But again, congrats to Gabriel Moreno. He is on the paternity list. The Arizona Diamondbacks have recalled Jose Herrera to replace him, but obviously felicidades to Gabby, and hopefully the Diamondbacks get him back soon, because man, they're not very good without him in the lineup. He has been a critical part of their success.
I cannot wait for 18 years from now, or I guess give it 19 to 20 when Gabby Moreno Jr. is making his debut with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Then when they build his what?
When Gabby Moreno Jr. is making his debut with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Mr. Diamondbacks couldn't play for anyone else.
No, it's not even a question. These are the next Griffeys.
Like Vlad Guerrero Jr.
They're going to play together. Gabby's going to be our catcher for the next 2 decades. And his son is going to pitch, and we're going to have the first ever father-son pitcher catcher battle.
A catcher like well into his 40s.
Knees of steel.
A 20-year career. That would be incredible.
I hope I'm around to see that. Anyway, speaking of other NL West or other NL East teams that we have to worry about, the Arizona Diamondbacks have a 4-game series now with the New York Mets, and let's take a look at that team at a glance. Of course, here we have a 65-77 record, which obviously that and their minus 37 run differential makes for a very disappointing season. for these Mets that were supposed to be World Series contenders when the year started. They sure looked like it the last time the Diamondbacks played them, though. So not super excited about going into this series against them. 5-5 in their last 10, as you can see there. Not great numbers. Starting pitching ERA 4.35, which is 15th in Major League Baseball. Relief pitching ERA 4.55, which is 22nd. OPS of 722, good for 18th, and minus 24 defensive runs saved, which is 25th in Major League Baseball.
I had a dream that Pete Alonso was traded to, I think, the Giants.
Elizabeth is right. Wait, what are we doing here?
What?
Damon with the logo covering up, and what Pete? What is going on with this
needs
picture?
To get her
on
mind
the
out of
side?
the gutter.
All right, no, I think she's
that's
right.
What needs to happen.
Well, okay,
I'm
also,
with Elizabeth
Pete Alonso is like the king, I feel like, of making really weird facial expressions and kind of looking like he's doing something all the time. I will say, like, these numbers are great. They also mean jack shit to me because we all saw what happened.
They'll be a completely different team when they play the D-backs.
We haven't acknowledged this, and I don't want to spend too much, but like, we are playing in New York on 9/11. Like, the atmosphere there is going to be different, I think, than one would normally expect playing the Mets.
That's a good point.
Well below the post.
It's going to be emotional. So it's going to be very.
It is going to be. I feel like a very specifically tonight, and obviously one game can obviously change how the entire series looks. So
yeah, but you don't want to be a visiting team playing against a New York team.
Well, no, I mean, this organization knows that better than anybody.
That's very true.
I mean, it's definitely going to be an interesting as far as tonight's concerned. But I mean, same thing that happened the last time we played them. At the end of the day, on paper, it's a pretty good roster, or at least offensively. So
offensively,
you can't. And I mean, you talked about like some of the matchups. Like, I mean, we get Mert, but the day we get Mert, they go against their best pitcher. So like, I don't know.
Well, we do have the probables. Let's take a look at the probables really fast.
I mean, based on how this season has gone, I do not feel good. I don't feel bad, but I'm not coming into this being like, this should be 3 or 4.
Yeah, because it's the Mets. And because, once again, it's an important series. It's 4 games, and you really don't know, again, what version of the Diamondbacks team you're going to see here.
You don't know what version of literally any of those 4 men that you see on our screen right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
like,
you have
joked
Zach
about
Gallen
Zach
on the
Davies
road.
being throwing a no-hitter, but it's like,
maybe he does.
He's either going to throw 5 innings of like 1-run ball, or he's going to give up 5 runs in the first inning.
Yeah.
Same thing can go for Ryan Nelson, and honestly, Zach Gallen.
Yeah.
Merrill's the only one where I'm like, he should give us 6 innings of like 3 runs.
And that's, again, the better matchup here against Kodai Senga, who was very good against the Diamondbacks when he pitched against us.
Huge fan of Kodai Senga.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I mean, I think much like the Cubs series, there's a lot of apprehension here because it's still a dangerous team, and the Diamondbacks need these wins because we just showed you that wild card standings graphic. Every game matters. These are all very, it's a very close, race. And right now with like you said, I mean, the emotions running high on an anniversary like this, and to be playing in the state of New York, it's not going to be an easy atmosphere to play in. And I think that the Diamondbacks hopefully can not, let that impact them too much. But this is an important series.
This weekend should be reserved for the Subway Series, in my opinion. I know that's not really how scheduling works, but they should always do New York versus New York this weekend.
That's
in
probably,
my opinion, as opposed to having.
That's probably a pretty
it
fair...
is. I feel like kind of this is like nitpicky, I guess, but it's kind of unfair to the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Boston Red Sox who have to play New York teams tonight.
Yeah, especially the Diamondbacks, considering our history of playing them. After
the Diamondbacks in particular.
What happened, right?
Yeah. Like if you wanted to make if we were playing the Yankees this weekend, it would feel a little different because it's like, okay, it's 22. It's like a little bit of an anniversary type thing, I guess.
I'm actually on board with that, and the reason why is because baseball was very important when it came to the United States returning to life.
I mean, everyone's seen the footage of George Bush throwing out the first pitch.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, baseball was pretty big at that.
But it's like, it's weird. It's weird because, okay, so there's 2 things now I've experienced in my lifetime that was like this. And it was that, and then it was, the pandemic, where it was like life was so different after this thing happened. And like at one point you just had such a strong desire to kind of like have things return to normal. And like baseball was such a big part of that. Right. And it's like, you just the fact that Major League Baseball decided to resume and get things going again, and I mean, it was that first thing that made us feel like we were back to normal life. Like it's hard to explain, because it's like I said, the only thing I have to compare it to is the pandemic, because those are both just very strange events that like completely changed my life at one point that I had to kind of live through. And like September 11th obviously didn't last as long, the things that happened after that, but it felt like life here in the United States just completely went on hold for a period of time, and baseball resuming just felt good. It felt like man, we're healing, know.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily mean to get us into a whole conversation about.
No, I mean
my point is that like this is far from being like a normal like a wild card team going to play a team well out of the playoffs. It's not just a good team versus a bad team. There's a lot more to tonight and the series in general.
But my point was, I like your idea about the Subway Series very much, just because I feel like baseball should kind of do something on the schedule to consider this, considering baseball was such a big part of that healing process.
None of the American teams should have to play in Toronto on Memorial Day. That makes no sense to me. Or the 4th of July. I've never understood that. I've never understood why. The Blue Jays should be home for Canada Day every single year. There's no certain things like that just don't make any sense to me. But
those are easy fixes on the schedule.
Why do we always have to play spoiler for the 9/11 team?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's a little unfair to the Arizona Diamondbacks. You knew what you were doing.
They make us the enemy.
Yeah. I'm just saying,
like, America.
It's a little unfair.
we're not. We're good guys. We like America. We're fine.
Also, can I just say, Mike McCarthy last night wearing an FDNY hat while playing a New York team and being the Dallas Cowboys.
Another reason it should be
New York. Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
It's the city's bigger than the country at that point.
The Mets, regardless of tonight, haven't been very good since the All-Star break. They've been basically a league average offense and a very bad pitching team. So hopefully,
which is what happens when you trade two future Hall of Famers.
When you trade Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, and you replace them with Jose Butto. I think it's Buto.
Yeah.
I disregard
would hope so.
my first pronunciation of that last name. And I think Joey Lucchesi is also in this rotation. At least he made that start last time. D-backs might see him. I think it's against Zach Gallen in that third game of the series. So when you replace Scherzer and Verlander with those two guys, that's a pretty significant drop off. So. This is not the same team that it was at the beginning of the year, but it's also not that different. I mean, there's still Brandon Nimmo, there's still Francisco Lindor, there's still Pete Alonso.
Yes. DJ
Stewart has been phenomenal this year in about 100 plate appearances so far for the Mets. So this offense can hit. It's actually a pretty good offensive team. I think from an offense standpoint, the D-backs and Mets are on somewhat equal footing, but the pitching is really what you would think would make the difference.
Well, we thank you guys for being here right now on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to do so. Sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss when any of our wonderful shows on the network go live. Leave us a little thumbs up. We always appreciate that that acknowledgement, that attaboy. I like my attaboys. That's what we're going to call thumbs up from now on. Those are attaboys.
You just got to do the attaboy.
Yeah, just the attaboy.
What happens when someone dislikes the video?
Oh, that's I don't know.
Bad dog.
That's a scolding. Yeah, bad dog. If you are listening on the audio podcasting side, we appreciate you guys being here as well. Please subscribe to us there as well. Leave us a review. We always appreciate that feedback. BetMGM, by the way, I made myself a little money with the emotional hedge yesterday. I bet against the Arizona Cardinals, which didn't feel great until
I bet on the end
of the game.
And that also did not feel great.
No.
That felt great at no point.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
Felt great at halftime.
It did actually feel good for a while.
Yeah, it did. I bet. I mean, I was sweating it, especially when it got close and I needed James Conner to have 45 rushing yards.
Oh my God. Can we start feeding James Conner the rock, please? Both my wallet and my fantasy team depend on it.
I get it. Well,
I have James Conner.
Yeah.
Oh, a different fantasy team.
Oh, different.
Yeah, these guys have like 12 fantasy teams.
I've only got 3 this year. I wouldn't like this year.
I can only handle one.
Jesse, how'd fantasy go this weekend?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want.
I'm in the middle of a suck fest versus Espo.
Yeah.
I need the Bills to put up points on the Jets today.
Meanwhile, I'm going to be this week's highest scorer. So that's the way things go. But again, this is all the fun you can be having, not only in fantasy football, but on the BetMGM Sportsbook app. If you place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through BetMGM Sportsbook mobile application of at least $10, you will receive $200 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. It was a great, that was a great part of my little parlay that I put against the Cardinals. They had a odds boost that doubled my odds. So I went from 650 to 1300, won myself a nice little amount of cash. But you can get a little amount of cash for doing very little on the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Just download it or visit betmgm.com. Sign up with code PHNX. That's the important part. Sign up and place deposit at least $10 into your newly created account. Place a wager in the amount of at least $10 at a standard odds price. And once you have placed a qualifying bet, you will receive $200 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your wager. And look, I'll say this much. I have really enjoyed betting very small amounts of money on very long shot bets. But it doesn't need to be crazy bets. I just build a parlay with lots of legs. That's been my secret lately.
My favorite football tradition is every week I will put $1 on a parlay of every single game. And one of these days I'm gonna go God mode and I'm gonna hit it. And I'm gonna quit my job with the $1,300 that I made.
I was gonna say, was that like $800? Well, you can maybe quit your job after winning $800 too one of these days. But don't do that. Don't do that.
Josh Allen over rushing yards tonight. It's a lock.
Lock it.
Yep.
Put it in.
I'm
going right now.
Yeah, he's going to do it right now. Sign up. Do like Shawn. Sign up for BetMGM. Use bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile application of at least $10. You will receive those $200 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
All right. And also big shout out to our friends Illegal Pete's for feeding us lunch and for just being an incredible spot.
By the way, I got to say, we got to stop this. We got to stop this having the food delivered while we're live shenanigans. I blame Max for that, not the good people over at Illegal Pete's.
No, it's absolutely Max's fault. Max does it deliberately.
I'm tired of it. Yeah. I'm tired of it. And it seemed like it was
show
last time we got it, it was 1:30. Today it was 1:15. So they're like, at some point it's going to be like, hey, food's getting delivered at 1:01.
Yeah.
So it comes immediately after your show starts.
We will start our show at 1:05.
We'll just start it. We'll just change the time we do the show. We'll just come on live eating tacos because
Jacob decides to come out here and start licking his fingers.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They don't want to see us succeed.
What if we were just eating during the show?
What if we just ended the show and
people want to watch that, right?
Like smelling it and not getting to go eat it is the biggest torture that we could possibly have to experience. But Illegal Pete's right now, let me tell you, the weather is nice, guys. It's back. It's back to patio season. We are sub 100 degrees here, and I don't know. We got.
Isn't it like 104 today?
But we've been getting cooler days recently.
Today's like I had like a 94.
Today in the shade is not bad.
It's great outside.
It's like we've gotten to the point now where you don't want to die every time you step outside.
That's correct. That's correct.
That
was Sunday, but now this is Monday, and now we're out of the bad times.
It's a really big bar to clear.
Yeah,
I mean, here it is.
Look, I just want to get under 100 degrees, you guys. But the biggest thing is whether it's hot out or not, you can get Illegal's super strong margaritas, the strongest in Arizona, and they'll get you where you need to go. And you have irresistible drinks, mouthwatering food, and so much more. Illegal Pete's is your go-to spot. Stop by for happy hour, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day at all 12 locations. Illegal's Pete's, the go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beers for 28 years. Well, it is that time, you guys. You know what we do around here because every year on this podcast is our year. Every month on this podcast is Indigenous People Month. Every month on this podcast is Black History Month.
Yes, that's true.
Every month on this podcast is Women's History Month. Every month is also Black Women's History Month. Every week is Shark Week. Every day is Earth Day. But on Mondays, we go to the mailbag. Damon, let's go.
My mailbox, always something interesting in my mailbox. I try to get to everything in my mailbox, and then once in a while there's a letter that makes me go wow, wow. My mailbox.
All right, Damon, what do we got? First question. comes from our friend Yoshi, Piece of Yoshi on Twitter, and he asks, are you also disappointed we won't get Gallen versus Senga this week, or am I alone in being distraught? Yeah, no, I'm a little disappointed. At least we get Merrill versus Senga, which I feel like, not to discredit the great Zach Gallen, but the way Merrill Kelly has been pitching lately, he is our 1A, you know, if you will.
That's what I was
literally
going to say. At this point, they're very much like a 1A, 1B to me. So, like, if we get either of them against the other team's best pitcher, I'll be pretty happy about it.
Merrill has a lower ERA.
Yeah, if this was like Davies or Nelson or Fott versus Senga, I would be very concerned. But I'm happy that we get one of our two guys against them. So I'm not that sad about it.
The other thing is that, it's similar story in the Cubs series, right? It was Justin Steele against Merrill Kelly, but then it was Zach Gallen against Jamison Tyone. And Zach Gallen against Jamison Tyone turned into probably the best pitcher's duel of the entire series, right?
Maybe one of the best pitcher duels of the year.
Yeah.
How many 1-0 games do we have we had this year?
I'm fully expecting Joey Lucchesi to turn into like peak Randy Johnson or something on Wednesday. And we're going to have an outstanding pitcher's duel between Zach Gallen and I think it's going to be Lucchesi that day. It's not confirmed yet, but we'll see.
All right. What else we got, Damon? Gabriel at Bold as Bronze asks, if the D-backs make the postseason, what will the roster look like? He says, please, no Pavin. Now, I know that there's a lot. I think our next question is also, Damon, can we see the next one as well? It comes from Straight Mons and says, why don't we call up Jake McCarthy and send Pavin down? It's the most logical thing to do. We are seriously trying to make the wild card. So I felt like both of these questions are related. They're both essentially the same question. And it's the question a lot of people have on their mind. Why aren't we turning to Jake McCarthy at this point and sending anybody? I mean, honestly, it could be Pavin Smith. It could be a number of guys. But to be honest, with the way that Jake McCarthy is playing, I really do feel like I agree with the sentiment that he should be called up. Jake McCarthy just won back-to-back PCL Player of the Week award, and he is just absolutely killing it at a AAA level with all of his weapons, with all of his tools. It doesn't really seem very logical to not turn to him, right? I mean, at this point, he's just been, and again, like we saw with Jordan Lawlar, like we just discussed a little while with Kyle Lewis, doesn't equate over to success at a major league level, but he just seems so hot right now that why wouldn't you bring him back up to see how he's doing at a major league level? He was always a very good defender for this team, and
the base running obviously is a huge asset. Yeah, I mean, Jake McCarthy over his last 15 games is slashing 458, 494, 778. You can't
458?
You can't ask for anything better than that, right? I mean, there comes a point when it's pretty clear that Jake McCarthy just doesn't really belong in AAA, and clearly he is far beyond the level of most players in that league. So yeah, I think it still feels inevitable to me that Jake McCarthy will be called up at one point. And yeah, if you're calling up Jake McCarthy from a positional standpoint, Pavin Smith kind of lines up with his expected role the best. So there is just kind of a natural match there. Pavin has had some good at bats so far that we've seen, but I think he's 0 for 6 with 3 walks. That's still not the kind of production that you're looking for. So we've talked about previously, for a guy who doesn't have a lot of defensive value, doesn't have a lot of base running value, things that Jake McCarthy obviously does have.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me with Jake is like, it's obviously, I mean, part of it is Pavin's lack of production, but for me, it's just like the way that the times that this team has been most exciting and the most dangerous is when they create chaos, and Jake is obviously much more capable of creating chaos, particularly on the base paths, than damn near anybody on this team, let alone just Pavin. So like,
even if Jake didn't hit, there's still value in that.
So at this point, it's kind of, I mean, it's similar to the Lawlar Ahmed thing in the sense that it's like, if these two things if the two are comparable, then you got to start going to like kind of intangible things. And I think all the intangible reasons that you would want one of these guys lean in Jake's favor.
Yeah. It's like in that instance, it's because Jordan Lawlar is the future of this team, and you want to kind of get him started on the road to being acclimated to a major league level as soon as possible. I don't know if Jake is a future part of this team, but he very much feels like he could be. Yeah. He very much feels like he could be part of this core that they're building that would include Lawlar, maybe Perdomo, obviously Corbin, obviously Moreno, but they have a lot of guys that are all around the same age, Alec Thomas, and that these guys could all end up being this core of this team that is hopefully, helps produce a winner here for a number of years while they're there, right? But, it remains to be seen who the Diamondbacks are going to truly invest in and who they're going to kind of look at as being assets that they can part ways with and maybe bring in somebody else to get them from this level that they're at up to the next level. I just feel like Jake at times is part of that. And I don't know if his sample size is big enough to really consider him a huge part of this team's future. It's just the energy that he brings. Like you said, he doesn't even necessarily have to be swinging the bat well for him to bring something offensively to the team. And obviously we know how good he is in the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, is Jake like a part of the core of this team? Is he one of the 3 or 4 best players that you're building around for the future? Not necessarily. I don't think we're quite to that point.
If that's not the case for Jake, it's certainly not the case for Pavin.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's pretty clear. And even if Jake isn't that guy, he still has a lot of value as like a 4th outfielder. I mean, if Jake McCarthy's your 4th outfielder, I think that's pretty good. I mean, not that many 4th outfielders play good defense and are among the best base runners in the sport. There's a lot of value in him in that role. So I think that does make a lot of sense. I guess the first question was about the D-backs postseason roster as a whole. So thinking about that for a second, they would have to cut one more additional player if they were to replace Pavin Smith with Jake McCarthy. They would still have to cut a position player because you're down to 26 as opposed to 28 where they are right now. So on that front, I think you're probably picking between Evan Longoria, Emmanuel Rivera, and Jordan Lawlar as being the 3 guys that if you were to have to make a decision about taking a player off the postseason roster, one of those 3 makes the most sense in my mind.
I would feel terrible just emotionally about Evan Longoria being
that, and I don't think it's
roster.
going to happen. Yeah, that one just, even though the numbers might point to that, and Longoria really has struggled quite a bit offensively since coming back from his back injury, he's just such a big part of this team from a leadership standpoint that's pretty hard to imagine. So then it's Rivera, it's Lawlar. I guess Jace Peterson could factor into this conversation. I don't know if I see that one being realistic either, as seeing how the Diamondbacks just traded for him. Jordan Lawlar, there are some complications with not having him on the roster because then you don't really have a true shortstop as a backup. Nick Ahmed is obviously not here at this point. There are other guys who can play shortstop if you need them to, but I think Lawlar is probably the best defensive shortstop outside of Geraldo Perdomo. So Emmanuel Rivera, I guess, is maybe the guy that would make the most sense there.
Then you have, I guess Jace is your backup first baseman if something were to happen. I guess if something were to happen to Christian Walker, you would replace him on the postseason roster. But like an in-game situation, you don't have anyone else who plays first base in that situation.
Yeah, I think Gurriel could maybe play first base in an emergency situation. He played first base a little bit last year with the Blue Jays.
Jace has played first base before, correct?
Yeah, Jace I'm sure
Jace
could.
is a utility
he
guy,
plays
right?
everywhere. Yeah, he probably could do that. On the pitching side, again, it's sort of the same story where unfortunately you'd have to take the 14 that they have right now and you have to bring it down to 13. And then there's also the possibility that Dre Jameson could still pitch this season. Apparently, Torey Lovello said that again a couple days ago to the reporters in Chicago. So you might, if Dre Jameson were able to pitch, then you could bring him in, and then you'd have to send 2 guys out. Luis Frias hasn't been here very long. I guess he would maybe be an option. Miguel Castro obviously has had his struggles this year. That could also make some sense. And there are probably a couple of other names that you could bring into that conversation too.
Realistically, once you get to the postseason, like your pitching staff, more or less, you got to think that some of these lower, like some of the guys at the bottom of the starting rotation are basically going to be bullpen guys, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're not taking 5 starters.
Yeah, so some of the lower end bullpen guys are also probably going to get pushed out of in that situation as well, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. All right, what else we got there, Damon? Next question comes from Ryan Hanley, and he says, "This is I love it. Does Jesse think the Diamondbacks are a wagon? And what bets are we looking at for tonight's game?" Ooh. Jesse, are the Diamondbacks.
I love how the first part of this question is just directed at me specifically.
It's just for you, buddy. It's just for you.
Listen, I know you don't want to answer that question, Jesse. Yes, they're a wagon. Whether or not Jesse wants to acknowledge it or not, Diamondbacks are a wagon.
Jesse can answer it a different way, but he knows what
There's
being
no
a wagon
scientific
means.
definition for what a wagon. I mean, I guess there is a dictionary definition for
There
a wagon.
is, yes.
We could have that conversation too.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, if the question is just what do I think about the Diamondbacks outlook over the next few weeks, that's how I'm gonna take it. Yeah, I mean they're in a good spot, right? I mean, if the season ended today, they would be a playoff team, which even a few weeks ago didn't seem like that was going to be likely. The D-backs fell to 57 and 59. You know, they were as far as I believe 3.5 games out of the wild card at one point. And they've come storming back. I know there was the 1 week against the Dodgers and the Orioles that was rough, right? They went 1-5 that week. Outside of that, the Diamondbacks for the last month have really turned things around in a big way. And you know, their schedule the rest of the way is not easy, but it's also not that difficult, right? You've got the White Sox, you've got the Yankees, you've got the Mets. You know, there's the Giants are still in there. There's another series with the Cubs in there. The D-backs finish with the Astros. I do think it's possible that once we get to that Astros series, the Astros might not have a lot to play for. That's another really big factor that will come up at the end of the season, is whether the Astros have wrapped up an AL West win or whether they're, you know, fighting for their lives at that point too, like the D-backs would be. So yeah, you know, the rest of the way, the schedule is not terribly difficult, and the D-backs have more than given them a shot to pull this off.
All right. Second part of this question, I'm going to give you what my parlay would be for tonight's game. And now I have no problem letting you guys know that if my custom parlays were to appear on the BetMGM Sportsbook app, they would be Derek's Cowardly Parlay. And the reason why is because we make money over here at Derek's Cowardly Parlays. And I'm taking the under at 9.5 on total runs because I hate fun.
And a Zach Davies start, you're taking the under?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I'm taking the under, yeah. And we're talking about total runs. I'm taking the player hits, Corbin Carroll, 1+. I'm taking batters struck out, 3+ for Jose Quintana. I'm taking batters struck out, 1+ for Zach Davies. I'm taking hits allowed, 3 for Jose, 1 walk allowed for Jose, 2 hits allowed by Zach, 1 walk allowed. Now you can add more, right? Like if you go up 3 hits, 4 hits, 5 hits, those are all going to get you better odds, right? But my little cowardly parlay is going to get you plus 350 with very little risk. So you throw a $10 bet on that, you're making yourself $45.
I know. Hey, I'm going a little simpler. I
love the long parlays that really can be ruined by one thing, but makes it a fun roller coaster ride to watch the game.
I'm just going Zach Davies over 4.5 hits allowed, plus 110. You can double your money on Zach Davies sucking.
I mean, that's hits
like it.
too.
That's
just
he
hits,
doesn't
right?
even have
That's
to
not
suck
even
that
runs,
bad.
right?
I mean, I feel like there's
That's 5
situations
hits
where
allowed.
Merrill Kelly has given up that much, and he's going 6 innings, like of 2-3 run ball or whatever, and like the D-backs still win in that situation.
Max just informed me that D-backs money line is his pick.
Okay, so we're taking the Mets money line. That's
so
the pick for
everybody add the New York Mets money line into that parlay that I just gave you. Thanks a lot, Max, for causing the Diamondbacks to lose. You rat bastard. I used it.
Yeah.
All right. Did I use it right?
Yes, you did. You used it perfectly.
All right. Well,
Max is the most rat bastard ever. Like
1,000%.
Max is the king rat bastard.
100%.
If you ever see him, he'll buy you a beer. That's the way that.
And then he'll bet on your favorite team, knowing damn well that he's cursed.
Absolutely. Well, make sure
because he's a rat bastard.
Don't forget.
For the record, Max is literally right here. We're not talking.
Yeah, we're not talking shit behind his back. We're talking to his face while
which I talk plenty of shit about.
He's putting beers in the refrigerator right now. He's doing a public service for us, and we're still attacking him here live on this show. Of course, make sure to sign up at BetMGM and use code PHNX when making those bets, by the way. Also, Max is stocking our refrigerator right now, but without him, we would all be dying of thirst. And of course, Circle K is the place where we stop to quench our thirst at America's Thirst Stop. Of course, right now, you can get down on the Inner Circle membership program. It's new and it's free. You just got to download the app. I'm told you don't even have to download the app. I think you can actually just sign up for it at Circle K at like the gas pump as well.
Download the app because you get all like the
app's way more fun. And I'll tell you this much: I did have an issue with finding the Inner Circle, and it was more probably user error, but I did have to delete the app and re-download it. So if you have any issues, you should once you've signed up for Inner Circle, you should have your like barcode up at the top with your phone number for you to scan at Circle K to use your Inner Circle membership. And it should also have an Inner Circle option down in the middle that keeps track of all of your spending and all of the wonderful deals you can get, including saving 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups.
I hope Circle K doesn't catch on the like the mental gratification I get from seeing the 25 cents taken off. Because if gas is $4, I would rather them raise the price of gas to $4.25 and give me 25 cents off than just pay $4.
Don't tell them that. Don't tell them to do that.
And so,
because if you tell them you're okay with that, they'll start doing that.
Because the mental just joy you go through of seeing gas drop off 25 cents for just putting your number in,
it's so good.
Is money.
Yeah, it's so good.
Quite literally.
Yeah,
money.
it's literally money in your pocket.
People,
but
they don't figure that out.
Yeah, hopefully not. Because right now, Circle K does have some pretty great prices on gas as it stands, but you will get 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups once you sign up for the Inner Circle. You also get buy 5, get the 6th one free on a selection of Circle K products, including pizza, coffee, and ice cold fountain drinks. So make sure to join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. And also make sure, no matter how hot, cold it is, whether you're a golfer, whether you're not a golfer, that you're still dressing in the wonderful polo shirts that Pins and Aces has to offer. It is our official golf apparel partner of PHNX and ALLCITY. And I don't know if they want me telling you this, but you don't have to wear their stuff at the golf course. You can wear it anywhere, and it's fashionable, and it's very lightweight. It's stretchy. It's everything you want out of a shirt. People will give you big compliments on it. And of course, like I said, you don't even have to go golfing in order to wear it. They also make hats, golf bags, and even a beer sleeve, which once again is not exclusive to the golf course. So make sure to check out pinsandaces.com and use code PHNX to receive 15% off your first order and get free shipping. That's pinsandaces.com.
I can say definitively that the best I've ever golfed has been in Pins and Aces. Was it good? No. But was it the best I've ever golfed? Yes. At our tournament.
It will help you make the most of whatever limited skills.
Because if you're gonna suck at listen, you don't gotta post your score when you post on the gram later. You just gotta look good.
100%. I just need one shot of me kind of not looking like an idiot while I swing.
Here's an example. Here's an example. At the Keeping It 100 golf tournament we had over the summer. There was a picture that went out of me because I golfed. It was me, Shane, Trenton Bourget, and Jalen Conyers.
No big deal.
No MBD. But there was a picture that came out.
Hold on. Let me pick up those names you dropped really fast.
MBD. Well, it was important because they were in the picture.
Yeah.
And there's a great picture of us celebrating a Jalen Conyers putt, and Jalen's in our limited edition. Right. I mean, you can't get it anymore, I don't think, but the Pins and Aces PHNX polo. And he's walking off celebrating that we missed the putt. He missed the putt, but no one's gonna know that because we look good as shit in the picture. He looks fly as hell.
You're sitting here right now, just telling everybody.
Well, I'm
the
just
truth.
saying it's a secret, for us because as we know, everything that we tell our followers stays between us.
It's just between us. We're like this.
So no one's gonna know that Jalen missed the putt, but he looked good, so no one knew. The picture went out later, and he just looked good.
By the way, can I say, watching Jalen drive golf balls is one of the most terrifying and exhilarating experiences I've ever had in my life.
He's gonna be in the NFL.
Like, the sound the ball makes after he hits it is something unlike I've ever heard. It's like when a NASCAR whizzes by you. It's just it's like something like that.
And he was wearing the Pins.
He was gripping it and ripping it. But all right, Damon, do we have more mailbag questions? What else we got? It's King Snake Cogs, the one and only. He says, who do you think is the next prospect to make his MLB debut, and will it be this year? Cogs, I don't know if he
Diamondback specific.
Yeah, I was wondering that because
Jackson Holiday,
Pete Crow Armstrong is making his,
which is awesome.
His
you saw
debut for the Cubs.
story behind that.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I think that's going to be an incredible.
My computer's dead, but his actual biological mother was the mother from Rookie of the Year. What was she from?
Yeah.
She is an actress in a baseball movie. That's
crazy.
Yeah.
And now she has the actual one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball as her biological son.
Yeah, it's
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it was Little Big League.
Little
is
Big
what
League,
it is. Yeah, which is again my favorite childhood baseball movie of
Unbelievable.
all time. Yeah,
That's crazy. That's like imagine that. Like imagine being an actress.
like you're
and
in a movie
you're-
about
you-
a kid being a baseball
and you're like,
owner.
That's not a bad idea. We're gonna do
I'm gonna
that.
have one of those.
I'm gonna do that in real life.
That's pretty great.
And then she did it. That's not. I'm tired of people that are successful just getting to be more successful. Like you are an actress in a big movie. You shouldn't also have a son that's
Some
a
people
top
get to
baseball
stack
prospect.
wins.
That's bullshit.
Some
The rich
people-
Let
get
me
richer,
have a
Shawn.
kid who's a top
I mean, it's
baseball
not
prospect.
like she had like a very. I mean, she was in Minority Report, I think, and she was in this, and I think that's it. Like,
That's it.
I'm just saying.
That's it. She's
Now
probably a
Derek is
SAG
hitting on
actress.
her acting
She
career.
probably is
Like
a SAG actress. She's probably out there right now, protesting, I imagine, with whatever's
Unbelievable.
going on. But Jesse, who's the next prospect for the Arizona
For the
Diamondbacks?
Diamondbacks?
I mean,
yeah.
obviously, I'm wondering if he means like just to make their way up.
I feel like it's probably
Because-
safe to say that no one's making another debut this year, right? At this rate,
Yeah, I would be pretty surprised. I think Blaze Alexander is one guy that would make some sense. I guess it would probably be more in the case of an injury if the D-backs needed another infielder who could play some different positions. I think he could make some sense. We kind of speculated he might even get the call before Jordan Lawlar because he's already on the 40-man roster.
Right.
So the fact that he's already on the 40-man, that wouldn't surprise me. If well, it kind of would surprise me. I'm not really expecting that unless the Diamondbacks have some unexpected need for someone in that position this season. Going into next year, though, yeah, it's hard to say. I guess I would probably say Blaze Alexander again if he doesn't make his debut this year. Blake Walston is another name
That's what I was thinking.
that could be in there, but he has basically the same number of walks as strikeouts this year, and I just don't really see the D-backs going that direction unless, again, if they really have to.
And it's far too soon for Ivan Melendez to be making his way up here.
Yeah,
You
I
I
know,
mean
that would be more
that was the
next
one
year.
thing with Lawlar is that obviously there was like a clear giant hole in the roster that was trying to make the playoffs and potentially win a World Series. Like now, I don't know that because we don't have a clear like ace pitching prospect. Like I don't think that there's any obvious holes that a prospect would be rushed essentially, because I think at this point anybody that got brought up would kind of be rushed, with maybe the exception of Blaze. Like
Yeah.
there's no need at this point.
I mean, even in at least in my opinion prior to him getting called up, I thought that was the case for Jordan Lawlar as well. So
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to happen.
but
so.
I think what Jesse said summed it up best, which was essentially he had nothing else to prove at that point at a minor league level, and it was time for him to get up here and start getting those major league reps. So
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, we don't have a Jason Dominguez in our system, so I think normally you probably don't want guys getting called up when you're in the middle of a wild card race. Like, and I mean, the Yankees
It's
probably
not
wouldn't
great
have called
if
they
you're
might not
doing
have
that,
called up
no.
Dominguez if they had been trying to win something.
I mean, if you're doing that, typically it's either because of an injury or it's because you are still
got nothing to play for.
fairly well. No, I mean, if you're in the playoffs,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
doing it because you're kind of desperately in need of
Yeah,
of someone to give
Yeah.
give maybe a jolt of life either at a position or maybe a pitcher or something of that sort.
I think it can be a good thing for players in general to just get some experience in high leverage
Important games,
situations in the majors.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's another thing if you're like really counting on
Yeah.
those guys,
Right.
which I don't really think the D-backs are with Jordan Lawlar. I mean, they are in a sense, but right. I mean, he's primarily here to face lefties and he's getting kind of a soft landing here in the majors. He's not being called up to play every single day.
Right.
And if he doesn't have an 800 OPS, then the Diamondbacks are in trouble. That there's not that degree of pressure on him.
We've even seen Torrey take him out of the games in big spots so that he
Yeah,
couldn't potentially
right.
have like a blunder that maybe shakes his confidence or cost the Diamondbacks a game. Right. So
yeah.
they've been very cautious about him for sure. What else we got, Damon? Brian, who is here. Brian says, out of curiosity, what would a realistic trade offer for Mike Trout look like? And could the D-backs afford to pay him? Though I'm not sure the Angels would have to pay some of his salary if he is traded. I think I have a bigger question. Do we even want Mike Trout at this point in Mike Trout's career, especially considering how much it would cost? I'm not saying like, oh, hey, picking up a You know,
I mean, which Shawn do you want to answer this question? You want logical Shawn, or do you want baseball fan Shawn?
I love that's a choice we have
because
to make.
baseball fan Shawn, like Mike Trout is one of the greatest players to ever play the game. I don't care if he's 80 years old. I want to see him in a Diamondbacks jersey.
Let's
like,
get logical Shawn. Can we have logical Shawn?
Oh, then of course not. I mean,
Okay,
we're
there he
talking
is.
about this is a team that wants to re-sign Zach Gallen, like has dreams of winning a World Series in the next couple of years. Like
I know
this isn't the Yankees where we can afford to spend money on a guy who's going to play half the year,
right?
And also does not have any real postseason experience either, which is important, which is crazy to talk about when we're talking about Mike Trout. But like, we don't know.
Shawn doesn't want Mike Trout because of his lack of
I do. But
I'm just
saying, like, you're there's a lot of. Obviously, I want Mike Trout, but like. Not for what it would cost and what it would do to this organization. Like I don't think I don't think trading for Mike Trout is going to make that necessarily put them any closer to winning a World Series.
Right. Like Mike Trout isn't one of those. I mean, Mike Trout is an elite player, but at this point in his career, is he going to be worth the cost? And is he going to be elite enough to improve them and get them up to that next step? Like I don't mean to diminish Mike Trout's accomplishments or the fact that he's still a great baseball player. I just think Mike Trout is one of those players that ends up costing a team a 100%. Bunch of money, and then, like you said, can't really stay healthy all the time and doesn't really produce more than another guy that they could have gotten for a fraction of the cost.
I mean, it's kind of like Carlos Correa. Like he was really good, and then he was obviously in the middle of a very interesting free agency thing this offseason. But like,
look at how many teams dodged a bullet by not being able to sign him during this.
I wouldn't want that contract right now. Right. And I mean, Mike
honestly,
Trout,
his contract with the Twins is far more reasonable than anything he was going to sign with
that. I mean, could you imagine if you were the Giants?
So the Giants and the Mets.
The Mets were the other one, Like,
can you imagine
if you were the Mets right now with that contract on top of everything else? Whew,
yeah, that would
be tough scenes. But yeah, I mean, of course I want Mike Trout, but realistically, what are you going to have to give up for him?
Right.
I don't think is going to ultimately be worth it. And then, I don't. Mike Trout has been the best player in baseball arguably over the last decade and has not made the playoffs. Like, he's clearly not enough in and of himself to make this team. No one player is. I wouldn't.
Yeah, one player is in general. That's the story with the Angels. It's not that Mike Trout. Wasn't
my point is
that
like I don't think Mike Trout doesn't take this team from being like a borderline World Series or borderline wild card team to all of a sudden being a World Series favorite. I don't think
if he stayed healthy for a full season, he could have that level.
He could, but there's other things you have to address.
The Angels tried to put a team around him, and the team, at least this year's team, is literally a walking wounded list, right?
Yeah.
You have weird things going on, like the entire Anthony Rendon situation, which we haven't really discussed much on here at all.
No habla
inglés today. Literally just doing everything he can. Like, if you go back and someone made a thread of that reporter's tweets about trying to talk to Anthony Rendon about his injuries, and it was just always literally some other thing, right? Like, so
it's unfortunate.
Obviously they have a weird culture over there and they have things going on, but I mean, like, I don't know. I think the big thing, I think there is something to say about the fact that like Mike Trout hasn't been enough to get them to where they needed to go. So like ultimately would he be worth whatever price?
Again, Gabriel, he hasn't played a full year in 5 years.
Yeah, since
like
2018.
Even 2018 was 140 games. He hasn't played like basically a full year since 2016. Really, that's when he played 159.
And you don't get to choose when these things pop up. So if you trade for Mike Trout and his bat goes out in September, then it's like, well, now we don't have Alec Thomas or Mike Trout.
Right. And he doesn't really fit their timeline. I would like the Diamondbacks to continue and I know it's going to be very hard to get young players that are good from other teams because they want to build around those young players as well. But I would much rather see them invest in a younger player that fits Corbin Carroll's timeline. So that
he fits the timeline in the sense that like
he does not.
Well, I mean, he fits the timeline in the sense that you are trying to win a World Series probably over the next 2 years.
While Zach Gallen is still here. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't think it's really a timeline.
The best
issue.
Mike Trout you're going to get is going to be over these next 2 years. But I mean, you are in that situation. You're winning now and sacrificing the future. And in that sense, like, if you don't win right now, then Corbin Carroll becomes Mike Trout. You have one of the best players in baseball, and you don't have the roster or the means to have a real contending team, and then you just have wasted this kid's career, which obviously nobody wants. Ultimately, it becomes worth it if Mike Trout stays healthy and you win the World Series that year. Then who cares? But yeah, I think that's a massive risk that I do not think is worth taking. And we haven't even talked about what they'd have to give up specifically to make that trade happen.
Just feels like it's going to be too much.
Yeah. I mean, so Mike Trout, I think there's 7 years and $250 million left on his contract after this season. So Jesus. 2024 to 2030, you're paying him $35 million per year. Theoretically, the Diamondbacks shouldn't give up anything for that contract.
Yeah.
If the Angels the Angels aren't covering any of that, Mike Trout, I don't think is going to produce enough value to be worth that over the next 7 years.
And isn't this the problem we're going to see with a lot of these big contracts where 100%. The guys are still owed a ton of money at the
you can't.
twilight end of their
it's
career?
It's going to be Miguel Cabrera, where you're almost like, if the team's bad, you kind of just have to throw his corpse out there because it's like, got to give the fans something to be happy about. And also we're spending half of our payroll on this guy. We got to play him.
Yeah.
It was what happened with Madison Bumgarner. Like,
I mean, and Trout is not at all like, he's still a good player.
Yeah.
His numbers this year aren't quite as good. This is the first year where his production has been noticeably different. He has an 858 OPS. But I mean, he still could be good for a pretty good while. But the issue is with the injuries. I mean, no player hurt half a season is worth $35 million a year.
Right.
It's just not worth it.
Right.
And from the Angels' perspective, there is zero reason to trade Mike Trout unless you're really getting some serious prospect value back. You're not going to trade Mike Trout just to get off of his salary.
Right.
That would be,
because I mean,
that would be really
if you're
dumb.
trading Mike Trout, you're not trading Mike Trout to get closer to the postseason. Like, it's not like any kind of trade you make for Mike Trout is going to make you like really closer to a World Series within the length of this contract. So then you're giving up everyone's favorite or second favorite Angel to suck over the next 10 years. And then it's like, Art Moreno already has everyone hating him. I don't know that this would do anything to help that.
Yeah. If it did happen, which it won't, it's probably not going to. But if Mike Trout were traded, it would take the form of the Angels eating a significant portion in order to get some kind of actual prospect value back.
Yeah.
Are the Diamondbacks the kind of team to make that trade? Almost certainly not, right? There's a lot of risk there. And even if the Angels pick up half of the salary, you're still paying him close to $20 million a year. So,
and you're also potentially getting rid of prospects for a player who, it's not saying you're not going to get good value out of him, but how often is he going to play? How much is his decline going to impact his production? How much are injuries going to impact his production going forward? Will he ever be that great Mike Trout that we've seen ever again? It's not to say he won't be, but there's a good chance that, the human body, once it's had its toll taken on it, isn't really going to rebound and go back to being what he was at one point. So who knows if his value is ever going to be worth to another team what it is to the Angels, like Jesse said.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got there, Damon? Marco says, chances we win most of the rest of the games of the season. We have one of the harder schedules. Well, the one thing is, I think this series coming up right now is important. And for me personally, I have no idea what to expect coming out of it. I feel like my expectations are fairly high and fairly positive. I feel like I'm cautiously optimistic about how this series is going to go, considering that I felt the way I did about the Cubs series and they were able to take 3 out of 4. I think once we get beyond this, the Diamondbacks do have some tests left. They have a very important 2-game series with the Giants. They still have 3 more against the Cubs. I think that these are all winnable games and winnable series for the Diamondbacks. I just think that it depends on how hot of a roll they stay on. Gabby Moreno not being available right now due to the paternity leave does concern me. His production not being in the lineup is something that they're going to miss, and hopefully he can come back fairly soon without it impacting the joy of his new child in his life. But I mean, as far as this series goes, it's important. And I mean, they have a 3-game series against the White Sox that feels like it's a fairly that's a fairly easy
that's a team you should beat.
Series, right?
Yeah.
They have a 3-game series with the Yankees, who at that point should have 0 to play for, but they seem to be playing better now that they have 0 to play for. And then they wrap things up against the Houston Astros at home, which, again, that could be an Astros team that has nothing to play for at that point or everything to play for, and we don't know.
The Astros with everything to play for is a pretty that's
terrifying.
That's a pretty
I
tough
mean,
way
we
to
talked
end
about
your
it.
season.
That's got Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah, the Brent Strom comment
all
about,
over it.
you know, Kyle Nelson versus the season could come down to Kyle Nelson versus Yordan Alvarez, and it's like, oh my God.
And that's got nothing to do with Kyle Nelson. That's everything to do with the fact that I don't know, like, it's basically Bryce Harper and then Yordan Alvarez of guys I do not want to see with, like, the season on the line, because they are big time baseball players.
Oh, Brett's dragging us because he's saying we are insane if you don't want Mike Trout.
I mean, again, if Mike Trout wants to sign as a free agent on a reasonable contract, then I absolutely want it. Like, I would, in a heartbeat, if you're asking me, who do you want in the postseason this upcoming postseason, Mike Trout or Alec Thomas? You're stupid if you're saying Alec Thomas over Mike Trout, but that's not how this works. There's contracts and years.
The D-backs need a right-handed hitting outfielder. I mean, that is literally something they are going to be looking for most likely this offseason.
Yeah,
Mike Trout fits great on paper, but there's a lot of complications.
He doesn't fit all that well
on paper. Marcos's question, though. Marcos is here. He says, "Hey, my question." Thank you, Marcos, for your question. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
On Mike Trout?
On
life
Marcos's question.
I forgot the question was already.
Yeah, can you
throw the question back up? These guys don't
on Mike Trout mode
again. To get back to Mike Trout.
My God.
I mean, I feel like the chances are pretty good. I mean, I don't know.
Are they going to win 10 more of their games? Are they going to reach 85 wins?
I think so.
Feels like it.
I think they
have those 3 games against the White Sox.
Hell if I know, because I didn't expect them to lose every game over a month and a half. Like, and especially with this being against the Mets in particular, who were the team that basically tried to end our season, because that's when the dark ages started.
That's when the dark times started.
That's true.
I don't know what to expect coming into this.
What do you think, Jesse?
But yeah, they should.
85? You think they get to 85?
On paper, I mean, I think the win percentage of their opponents the rest of the way is .490 on average, so it leans toward being an easier schedule. But yeah, I mean, it's impossible to predict, right? I mean, it's
they better. I'll say that.
I think it's an 18-game stretch. In 18 games in this sport, I mean, it's impossible to say. Are the odds in their favor to win more than they lose? Yeah, slightly. Yes. I would say slightly, but
like 50. It's like when you're still in the early stages of your fantasy football game, and you have a 51 to 49% chance of victory.
Yeah, I mean,
right? That's where they're
it's
at.
Like
right?
if you're like in a baseball game, if you track like the win probability, it's like if you hit a single with 2 outs in the first inning or something, like you have a 50.4% chance of winning that game. As a it's such a you just don't know, right? You just don't know how things are going to go, and we'll just have to wait and see how it turns out.
You know, something I just thought about
that we have passed Talkin' Jake's record for the season, and that we have more wins than he said we were going to have.
That's not what
wasn't it 70?
Oh, he said 73.
73.
Get your heart out, Talkin' Jake. I was thinking about the fact that about 9 months ago, just over 9 months ago, is when Gabby Moreno got traded to Arizona. Oh, you do with that information what you will.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Again, congrats.
Because I mean, Gabriel brought up that Gabby's not for the boys, but I mean, this was 9 months. He was going through a lot 9 months ago. He had some reasons to celebrate.
Yeah. Let's leave Gabby alone. Gabby is. I will protect Gabby at all costs. But all right. Well, we thank you guys, of course, as always, for your questions on Mailbag Monday. We always appreciate that. If you haven't signed up for PHNX Diehards membership, do that now. I don't know what you're waiting for. It's the best. It's the best value in sports membership. Not only do you get Jesse's newsletter, Full Count, you also get all sorts of wonderful content from our writers. You'll get access to our members-only Discord lounge. You will get a free piece of merchandise from the PHNXLocker.com and 20% off all future purchases. You will get also discounts with our partners. You get a Dobson Ranch card, $50 gift certificate for Mountain Mike's, and so much more. So join us today. Become part of our diehard family. And, of course, make sure if you're going out to watch a sporting event, a concert, a show, I went had a ball at my first
Your
Metallica
videos
concert.
were awesome, and I'm not even like a rock guy.
It was just
your seats were unbelievable.
It was one of the wildest experiences I've ever had. And like, there was one thing that I will say, I told you guys when we read this ad last week, there were plenty of seats available that would not have been available had they not had to reschedule the show. So you never know when a concert like this, especially after getting rescheduled, is going to have those kind of seats pop up. Great place to find those last minute ticket deals is at Game Time. Get it for everything you want to go to. Of course, it's a great place for procrastinators, and it is the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use our code of PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Do you think Gabby's going to name his kid Dalton?
Oh man,
Dalton Moreno.
Name the kid
that kid sounds like he
Marshall.
runs some shit.
Dalton
I don't know what.
Moreno.
But Dalton Moreno
God.
is in charge of something.
As CEO Dalton Moreno said on Saturday.
Dalton Moreno, yeah,
right? Yeah, that's great.
Moreno's such a good last name.
Varsho Moreno. That's even crazier. But I like it.
He's gonna have twin boys, Dalton and Varsho. This is Varsh. This is Dalton.
They both have all the tools. They both have all the tools. Well, we thank you guys for being here. Of course, you can make sure to follow us on Twitter. I am at cap_caveman with a K. This absolute maniac next to me is at Shawn_DePaz. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. The other maniac behind the Mac, that is Damon. We are Damon's dogs. You can get him at Damon Dog. That's DAWG there at the end. Of course, our show is at PHNX D-backs, and all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We appreciate your time. We thank you guys so much for stopping by. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you call up Jake McCarthy.